Hi, everyone. This is Mayor Shawyn Patterson Howard, and we are back. It's been a while. We've gone from Sundays with Sean to Let's Talk with Sean. We know that it is still Sunday, but there might be other days of the week that I am doing this. And so we just wanted to call it Let's Talk with Sean. So we are here today, and this is the kickoff again to us just coming and connecting at least weekly with the community to talk about issues that are important, to answer some of your questions. And today we have a very interesting topic. We'll be talking with some of our community members and community leaders about social media, the impact of social media, that while social media isn't real, there are times that it has real challenges and consequences. We want to talk about mental health for our youth and some of the challenges that they're having, especially navigating social media and how it influences oftentimes their day-to-day behavior. But first, I want to start off by saying again, welcome back to everyone. I want to share with you in these first few minutes some activities that we have coming up this week and things that you need to make note of. Right now, we're going to ask if you are live that you could please take a moment to share this live with on your page, share this live so that people know that we're on. So tomorrow is the 13th of January, and tomorrow we'll open up our winter and spring youth employment program. So the youth employment through the Youth Bureau will be available. It will be a 17-week program. It is a 17-week program that will run where our young people will be employed from February 24th to June 13th, February 24th to June 13th. The salary is $16.50 an hour, $16.50 an hour. And this is youth employment for individuals between the age of 14 and 25. 14 to 25 years of age, and the New York State minimum wage is $16.50. You can pick up your applications or go online and get applications starting tomorrow, January 13th. We have a maximum of 70 slots. This is going to be very competitive. There is a maximum of 70 slots. You will need to complete the application. If this is your first time applying, your application will include an essay as to why you want to work and some other things about what you want to be. So if you are selected, we can properly match you up. You will have to have your social security card when you bring your application back. So you don't need all of this tomorrow. You can pick up your applications, but you'll need a social security card, your birth certificate, your working papers, which you can get from the school district. Of course, you'll need to complete the application. And if you have already been employed through the Youth Bureau and you've done a resume with them, then we'll need your updated and your edited resume as part of your application. But we have 70 slots available. You can pick up applications starting tomorrow, and the applications, we will start collecting the applications the week of the 20, hold on, let me make sure I have this right. The applications, we'll start collecting the applications on the 27th. So you have 2 weeks to pick up and fill out your application, and then we will start collecting the applications on the 27th of January. So that's very important for our young people who are looking for employment. Please let them know, again, this is very competitive. On Wednesday, the 15th, there will be a comprehensive planning meeting. The flyer is right there for you. It's a comprehensive planning meeting on the 15th, and it will be held at Cecil H. Parker from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The comprehensive plan is something that we have not completed in Mount Vernon since 1968, and it really is for us to hear from the community and hear about your priorities for the future goals of our city, how you want to see the city designed, what you want to see in the downtown, what type of businesses, what type of transportation, what type of arts and entertainment, what type of culture, things of that nature. the playgrounds, what you would like to see in those areas. And then as we go out into the neighborhoods, how you would like to see the neighborhoods developed, what type of housing and heights of apartment buildings, what type of restaurants, just all of those things. It's a comprehensive plan. We're only 4.4 square miles. And so we have to be very strategic in how we are building and developing our city and working to move Mount Vernon forward. And we want to hear your voice. This is something that we're going to only do about every 10 years. And so this will help us decide how we're going to be doing development in the next 10 years. And then on Friday, the 17th of January, we will be doing our first mental health and wellness symposium. It is called Healing Together. It'll be Friday, the 17th at 5:30 at the Dole Center, at 250 South 6th Avenue. And Tim, please keep that flyer up. We want to talk about, we're going to have a keynote speaker, Ms. Marlene Furtick, who is a licensed social worker and has been doing that work in the community for a while. We are going to have several different panels, one called Breaking the Silence, Trauma, Healing, and Resilience in our community. The second panel will be Navigating Mental Health Resources. We will have quite a few of the agencies and organizations in Mount Vernon and in this area. There, they will be tabling and providing information. Then we're going to have another workshop on mental health and youth, because we want to make sure that our young people are strong. So many of our young people have just been impacted by social media, violence, challenges at home, challenges at school, self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. And we want to make sure that we're talking about some of the issues that challenge them and get them support. And then the last workshop is going to be about self-care, culturally relevant coping mechanisms for self-care. And so all of that's going to be on Friday at the Dole Center from 5:30 to 7 p.m. You could take the flyer down. It's really, really important that you come out to this symposium. It will not be broadcast live. It will be an in-person event because we want to make it safe for people who are attending. So please make every effort to attend in person. It is the first one. In the future, we may do more of the broadcasting, but for our first one, we wanted to provide a more intimate setting for people to start to have these conversations in our community. We know in communities of color, we know in faith households, and we know in different generations that mental health and stress and depression and anxiety are things that you didn't talk about. You know, many people were grew up, especially guys, being told, don't cry. If you do, you're a punk. You know, others were told, don't talk about things outside the house. Keep all of this in the house. It's our business and no one else's business. Other people were told that if you are dealing with depression or anxiety, if you're in church, then there's no room for social workers and mental health and anything like that. You know, you just need God, you just need religion. So we grew up, many of us grew up with a lot of stigmas around mental health, and those stigmas continue to live on. But mental health and emotional challenges are so prevalent in our communities, and we want to break the silence and move forward and heal together, right? That's what it's about, is making sure that we are healing together in our community. And so that's kind of the intro tonight. But tonight, I'm really, really great to have some special guests here with me. And if we can start bringing them on screen, Tim, I'd really appreciate it. We have Minister Henry Terry. He is with Mount Calvary CME, which is on 2nd Avenue here in Mount Vernon. But he also is one of the New York State staff for SNUG. We have Coach Condell Hamilton, and Coach Hamilton has been a football coach at Mount Vernon High School, but also even longer than that, I think he's been a coach with the Razorbacks and then Mount Vernon United, which it's currently named. And he has a different perspective. We have Ms. Taj Turnier, and Ms. Taj is the director of our Neighborhood Safety and Engagement Office here with the City of Mount Vernon, which is still a fairly new program, but really focusing on engaging the community. And she is a licensed social worker as well. We have Gorham Valentine, and Mr. Valentine is currently the outreach supervisor for SNUG, which is Guns Backwards here in the city of Mount Vernon. And soon to be, we're going to give a shout out to you in advance, the program manager come February. And then we have Vincent Jackson. And Vincent Jackson works at the Youth Shelter of Westchester, where he oversees the YouthCred program that really works with our young people around stopping the cycle of violence and dealing with their trauma. And so we're going to ask that each of you take 60 to 90 seconds to introduce yourselves, and then we're going to jump into this and we're going to move into this conversation because we really, really need to talk about social media. We need to talk about the mental health of our young people. We need to talk about kind of like this cancel culture, or if I see you on site, I'm coming for you. You know, and while social media is not real life necessarily, it does influence and impact real life. And we need to have that conversation because we've seen, you know, over the years as social media has become more prevalent and the game has changed, that a lot comes off of social media into life, and then real life starts you know, showing itself differently in social media. So we're going to start the introductions with our Minister Henry Terry, if you could, and then we're going to go after that with Taj, then Condell, then Gorham, and then Vincent. If y'all could remember that order. If not, I'll remember it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry. As our Madam Mayor said, I am the leading minister at the Mount Calvary CME Church, 38 South 2nd Avenue, Mount Vernon, New York, under the leadership of the Reverend Dr. Jeffrey R. Wheeler. I am also the owner and operator of the Healing Table Consultant, LLC. So this issue, this cancer, so to speak, I'm well aware of, and involved in the fight against it every day. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Taj?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Taj Turnier. I'm a licensed master social worker, doctoral candidate at LIU, and I am the director of neighborhood safety and engagement under the mayor's office. My focus is on preventing gun violence and fostering community-led solutions and creating impactful initiatives that empower and strengthen our neighborhoods in Mount Vernon. I'm happy to have this conversation. I feel like it's very necessary, and I think, like Henry said, it's a cancer per se, and I'm ready to address this.
All right. Okay, Coach Hamilton.
Good evening. I'm Condell Hamilton, coach of the Mount Vernon Varsity football team, one of the coaches of the Mount Vernon Varsity football team, and also a coach for Mount Vernon United / Razorbacks. Yeah, this is a conversation that we try to have with the kids every year, just to get them to understand that, you know, the difficulty of managing real life and social media and fighting against those influences. So I think this is definitely a very important conversation to have and to, you know, provide some guidance and insight.
Thank you. Mr. Valentine?
How y'all doing? Gorham Valentine, outreach supervisor for Mount Vernon SNUG. And I'm here to reduce the gun violence through conflict mediation. And I work with the people who are at the highest risk of shooting people or that could be shot. And I'm looking forward to this chat because it's well overdue.
All right, and Mr. Jackson?
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm Vincent Jackson. Like the mayor said, I am the YouthCred supervisor at the Youth Shelter program of Westchester. I basically mentor young people 18 to 25 years old, at-risk youth. And thanks for having me here with the part of the discussion, because this is what we do a lot at the Youth Shelter, and it's very well needed. Thanks.
Okay. So, you know, before we jump in with the youth, I just want to say this, right? Because we always talk about what the youth are doing, but oftentimes young people imitate adults, right? And oftentimes young people don't trust adults because we say one thing and we do another, right? So we tell them, don't take your beefs on social media, don't talk about people, don't do this, don't do that. But our young people for generations have grown up in houses where they've heard parents talk about family, talk about neighbors, talk about people in the church, talk about people on their job, and then walk out and smile at them, right? Where what they say in the house in earshot of these young people doesn't match the energy when the kids see them greeting people in church, at work, at the game, on their job or whatever, right? And we're always talking about, oh, these young people got to get it together. But as adults, we also have to be kind of better role models. There's a lot of adults that are beefing. And we might have a little bit more emotional maturity, whereas we can contain ourselves when we have a beef. But we got to understand that our young people don't have that same ability to pause, or they haven't developed that emotional maturity that when they get hyped, when they get amped, like I said earlier, I use the term on site, right? Quote unquote, because that's what you hear. When I see them on site, on site, they don't even explain it. It's just like on site. And for those of you who don't understand what on site means, if they have a beef, if they have an issue with someone, as soon as they see them, on site is when they're going to handle it, whether they're going to swing, whether they're going to stab, whether they're going to shoot, whether they're going to turn up that heat. So how do we deal with this? I'm gonna start out with you, Minister Henry. How are we dealing with this on-site mentality?
So I like to say, I say every day, right? The greatest thing in the world that a man has to give is his example, right? And that example has to be the same all the time, especially when you think there's no one looking, because that's probably the time that you're being watched and listened to the most, right? And like you said, they're so influenced by what they see and what they hear, and they're spending so much time online and on the internet and surfing and scrolling and trolling, right? I think it's like becoming asphyxiation to reality. It's suffocating reality. They're so engulfed with what they're seeing and hearing online and the examples that they have around them, like you just said, Madam Mayor. It's really making reality a blur. So what they're taking in online and what they're conversing about on social media is what they're turning into their own reality. They're really suffocating their actual reality with this internet stuff. And like you said, we have to be better examples, right? A lot of people know what to do when they have an audience. A lot of people know what to say when they have an audience, right? It's when you think there is no audience that is the most important. When nobody's looking, who are you? Because that's who you should be when everybody is looking. You should be that same exact person that you are when nobody's looking, because that's the authentic you, right? And that's the you that these kids are hearing and seeing and following.
I mean, you just said a mouthful right there. I mean, and you see it, right? Turn on the camera, let a crowd build up, and people are going to perform in a whole different way because they feel like, oh, I got to show right now that I'm no punk and I can't back down. And so, we saw that. We see it here all the time, whether it's on 4th Avenue, whether it's when the kids are getting out after school, whether it's in the cafeterias, wherever it is, whether they see each other at the movie theater. All of a sudden, people who've kind of been talking about each other or face fighting, right? Like, because face fighting is a thing, the rolling of the eyes, the sucking of the teeth, looking at you kind of grimy. And I'm going to use some terms, y'all. I'm an educated woman. I have my master's and, all types of advanced degrees, but we also know how to code switch, right? Because we want to make sure. And so there's going to be some code switching tonight. We're going to go back and forth. I know how now brown cow and be really, really uppity with all of this. But at the same time, we want to be able to reach our parents. We want to be able to reach our youth. So we're going to have a real conversation. And that's why this is not called Conversations with the Mayor. It's called Let's Talk with Shawyn, because Shawyn knows how to code switch and has no problem doing it. So if we can go to Taj, because Taj is ready to pop.
Yes, because Henry mentioned about who you are when no one is looking, right? But that's the thing about social media. You could get on social media and have a totally entire different persona than who you are in real life, right? And it gives people that confidence that in this space, I can be whomever, right? Because of the confidence that social media gives me being behind my phone. I could say whatever I want. I could be whoever I want. And that's the catfish, right? And fortunately for us, we grew up in a time where our playground was literally the playground. Social media is now the playground for our youth, right? Whether we like it or not, that's where they're at. You want to find them, you're going to find them on Snapchat or on TikTok doing a dance or a live, right? But that's the decent side of it, right? But there's times where there's the group chats going on, there's the bullying, there's all these, comments, derogatory things that's happening on social media, but that's their space, right? So it's how do we engage with them to let in a language. And I love that you mentioned that this is why it's called Let's Talk with Shawyn, and we're going to code switch this up because we want to be able to connect with them, right? And speak to them in a way that they understand. And that's the thing. Although we say that you are who you are, right, when no one is looking, but these kids are who they are because they spend majority of their times on their time on their phone in this virtual space, right? Where that's where their friends are, that's where the fun is, that's where I'm showing my art, my craft, but that's where on the flip side of it, that's where I could be the most gangster, the most this, when in reality, when the phone is put down or when it dies, or when you don't have no space to update the app and it doesn't work and it kicks you out, who are you? Right? Who are you? And I think, and to your point, May, where you mentioned about, I'm very mindful about how we label children because they're young, right? So they're being guided by someone. The girls, they watch baddies and they see these grown women tearing themselves up every day and it's romanticized, right? So how can we expect them to act a certain type of way or do better if this is what is being romanticized to them? And I don't want no hypocrite, right? I'm not a hypocrite. As a child, I was one of those. I probably wasn't Hartley. I probably wasn't Hartley or going up Sheridan as a kid. But I wish someone told me then, in 5 months, 5 minutes, 5 hours, none of this is going to matter. None of this.
Say that to the people in the back again. In 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days,
5 days, 5 months. Well, none of this matters, right? And I love the work that Gorham, Vincent, Henry, and coach, even you, coach, that we do, that we're being transparent with young people and letting them know, like, take my lifestyle or what I live as an example to make better decisions. Yeah.
There you go. I see Coach Condell. He's like, let me get in there.
Yeah, just real quick, just want to touch on 2 points that you made, Taj, is that, a lot of these kids, they get on social media and they create a persona. But the problem happens when you put that phone down and now you're seeing someone in real life and they're expecting this persona that you created on social media to be the real you. And now how do you react? Because now you're in a situation where real life now meets social media, right? And how do we get them to a place where it's okay to be the real you, whether you're on social media or not, so that there's not this conflict that happens once real life comes into play.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the issues happen. And also, back to setting the example. You mentioned it, what they're romanticizing on social media. Um, Henry mentioned it as well about what's the image that we are providing to the children. What's the image we're providing to the youth? Are we being authentic? Are we just saying one thing in front of them, but then doing the next? Because I can tell you right now, even as a coach, the kids are going to do what I do more than what I say.
Yeah.
So I have to be able to go out there and show them and actually teach them what I want to do and not just sit there and say, do this, do that, do this. And then they're looking at me like, all you're doing is just talking to me and just yelling at me and just annoying me every day. You're not providing me any guidance. And so I think it's real important that our actions have to match our words. And we have to be able to go out there and say, this is who I am all day, every day, so that when no one is looking, when you think no one's looking, and that's when they pay attention the most, they still see like, you know what? This is real. That's the real him. That's what it's about. You know, I want to be like that. I want to be somebody that's a man of my word. I want to be somebody that has integrity, that has character, rather than, you know what? Everybody around me fake. So I'm going to go on social media and be fake too, because my pop said this, but he did this. My mom said this, but she did that. So you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. And then we're now sitting here being upset when it's really because of the example that we set.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna jump on over to Vincent. Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, Mayor Sean Patterson, it's the example that we set, the older people. So I focus on young people where I work at, right? But it's not the real, like, you know what I mean? Like the dudes that I came over in the street. So I try to practice what I preach every day now, because you got to give them the real. They don't understand the real when it comes, especially when it comes to social media. Because like if you've been through that system and you coming out, you're gonna let these young people know the real. Like this is what I'm preaching to them every day. The real is like they using the social media platform to bring charges against you. It's part of your discovery, like everything that you doing, that you showing on social media. And they not getting this real from, the older guys that been through it, because a lot of them coming home and they fronting. So when I'm out there, I try to like let them know too, like, listen, man, y'all got to give them the real, man, because that's the only way it's gonna work. Like everybody, y'all got to stop coming out here fronting when y'all going through something, and really give these young people the real, give these young youth the real. And that's what I'm trying to bring every day. That's why it's not just me working with the youth. I'm in the community just doing it. And I'm practicing what I preach every day, because you got to give them the real. Every step that we go through, when we going through something, you got to give them the real part of it.
And that's important, because people have this fantasy that when they get caught doing something, that their people are going to do their time with them. Nobody's doing that time with you.
Oh.
You're doing that time by yourself, right? You might go up to Valhalla, right? Or you might go upstate. But then depending on what you do, you might be doing some federal time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real different. And people aren't thinking about that. And I'm going to say this, and it may not be popular. Vincent, if you could mute for a second. There you go. I'm going to say this, and it may not be popular. We talked about this. Miss Frances Dunn, and I talk about this all the time. She's the executive director. Joanne's the executive director of the youth shelter. That there are 5 pillars I see of public safety, and one is prevention, one is intervention, one is diversion, the 4th one is enforcement, and the 5th one is reentry. 4 of those, right? 4 of those really are about preventing crime, intervening when there is crime, providing an alternative to incarceration once you've been involved in crime. And the other one is, once you've served your time, coming back home, how do we keep you from going back in, right? And not, being a recidivist. But there is one that is enforcement, but that's only about 20% of the spectrum. And I'm here for that 80% all day long. I'm here for that 80%. I'm here to help prevent it, to intervene when you get involved in it, to provide an alternative to incarceration if you're eligible for it, and to help you when you come home. But if you don't want any of those things, then I am absolutely here to support the enforcement. And so enforcement, our police department has struggled with our numbers, as do many police departments around the country, especially in urban areas. People are not going into law enforcement as much as they did before because of, criminal justice reform and police reform. There's other people who aren't going into it because they don't always feel like they're going to get respect in the community. In a lot of urban areas, there is lots of low-paying police departments. So we get recruited to other communities because they can pay higher. And so one of the things that we've done even more under this administration is we've brought in the FBI, we brought in the ATF, and we've brought in the DEA. So the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the DEA is the Drug Enforcement, Agency. And those are federal agencies. And if those agencies are involved in these cases, people are going to catch federal time. And this is not 2 years or 18 months in Valhalla. This is not 5 years where you repping a 914 in the state. You're going to Texas. You're going to Virginia. You're doing Fed time, and you're going to come out and you're going to do Fed parole, and you're going to get like really much larger numbers, right? Larger numbers than people are used to. And I don't necessarily apologize for that, because the one thing that we can't allow people to do also is feel like there's no consequence to their actions when this is something they choose to do over and over and over again. And we can't allow 2 to 5% of the people terrorize a community. Bottom line, right? Because most communities, it's not even 10% of the people who are engaged in criminal activity. It's usually about 2 to 5%, 2 to 5, not 25, 2 to 5%. So we're here to provide all types of alternatives and supports if you've done wrong and you want to do right. But if you persist in trying to run into that brick wall, eventually you're going to hit it. Eventually you're going to hit it. And that's, and that's sad, but it's true. So Coach Hamilton, you said you talk to the kids every year on the football team, kind of about social media and like what they need to avoid or how they need to handle themselves. Like, how does that conversation usually go?
It usually starts with one of the things we tell them is to use social media, don't let it use you. You should be in a situation where you're controlling your content. You don't let what the trends are or what everybody else is doing influence what you post, how you post, and why you post. But also thinking of it from you're playing sports. That means you have a vision of something greater that you want to do with yourself. 10 years from now, you should be able to look back in your social media and you shouldn't be ashamed of what's on there. Right. So trying to give them that guise of thinking like, hey, if, the Ohio State coach looked at his social media, would he still want you to be a part of his program? If you want to be a doctor and that organization looks at your social media, would they be ashamed of having you as a part of their program? So trying to have them think long term, because a lot of times, with kids, it's instant gratification. It's how much likes can I get right now to feel good about myself? How much comments can I get to feel good about myself? But they don't think about what's going to happen 5 years from now, because to them, it's, 5 years is forever. So trying to get them to think more long term, understanding the impact that once you hit send, you can't take it back. And just understand. And then we also we show them situations of other players and what happened when they misuse social media and the consequences for that. And so getting them to start thinking about that early and understanding consequences and holding them to those consequences when they don't adhere to the lessons that we're trying to teach them, it helps because then they're able to spread the word to their friends and say, hey, I can't be involved in that. If you're going to do that, I can't be around. I can't be in that video. And, as a means of influence other people, we try to use the kids on the sports team to influence the rest of the school.
How do we deal with the whole kind of mentality, not of just young people, but many of our adults have it, that I'm exempt. I'm smarter, I'm slicker, I'm cooler, I'm flyer, I'm going to get away with it. No one's going to see. I mean, Gorham, I see, it's like, they didn't do it right. They didn't handle it right. Gorham.
What I be talking to these, first of all, my number one approach with these kids is real life testimonies. Because if you're not being real with these kids, they're going to smell it. And then you got to think back to when you was a kid. I had to talk to social workers, and I feel like I couldn't relate. I didn't want to talk to them. So I give them a real life testimony. But as far as from what you said just now, I just try to teach these kids, like, people is not going to view you how you view yourself. And I just try to get them to reflect on that and just let them know, like, the person who you made up in your head to be, everybody's not going to see you like that. You may not be like that. Somebody might think you're Wayne. Somebody might think you're smart. Somebody might think you're stupid and stuff like that. So don't get caught up in this, oh, I'm doing this, I'm getting likes. No, people might be viewing you as you're stupid for doing that. Or you think they laughing with you, they laughing at you. So I just try to be real with these kids nowadays and stuff like that.
So music also influences a lot, between social media, music, the video games, things that they watch on TV, the violence, and like you said earlier, Taj, reality TV, which we know is everything but reality. But it's popular and people get a lot of likes. I was actually watching a video on social media the other day. Someone had sent it to me, and someone was interviewing high school kids and asking them how to spell the word intelligence. And I think they had asked like 20 kids and they couldn't spell it. But if you ask them to, be able to break down the Cash Cobain song or a Beyonce dance or, talk about any song that's out there, they could do it forward and backwards. And for some of them, if you ask them, how do you pull a scam? How do you wash checks? How do you do these white collar crime? And that's another thing that we have to talk about, right? Because this is happening far too often. When my daughter was growing up, and then when I was like, I came up, I graduated from high school in 86 and I went to Howard in DC, and that was like as crack was breaking out, and the Corner Boys and The Wire and all of these different TV shows that was made about that. But now you're not seeing a lot of people on the corner, right? Because the corner is not necessarily yielding the same type of money or influence that it yielded before. But now you see people with the credit cards, with washing the checks, with people trying to, porch pirates and people trying to break into houses and things of this and that nature. But white collar crime is getting a lot of our young people into trouble also, because you can make a decision to go get money with your friends, but when someone decides that they're not trying to split the money up the same way y'all discussed, or people know that you're getting money and they want your money, regardless of how you're getting it, they're coming. And if you're a wing and not a boss, it's going to be real.
Madam A, you mentioned, just to your point, right? In Condell, we spoke about the phones, right? And not being able to spell, right? And I always said, the smarter the phones get, the lower the intellect goes, right? It's like the technology is getting smarter, and we're just decreasing intellectually, right? As a society, just as a whole, right? Not just in the city of Mount Vernon. But as far as like white collar crimes, I always tell young people, if you have the skill set to scam somebody out of their hard-earned money, you could go sell a house, you could go sell used cars. You have that talent, that gift of gab, right? That you put the energy in to shift the narrative. Like you was doing this, but now you could do this, right? But what it is that it's like a microwavable success, right? They're seeing what's being showcased on social media, where it seems as if this rapper is blowing up overnight, right? But they're not seeing the 10 years of hard work, of dedication, the writing, the ups and downs that it took for me to have this 1 year, where now the millions is flowing in, the sponsorships are coming in, because people are only showing on social media everything that looks good, that's glamorized, right? But nobody is not showing when they failed that exam, when they did this, they got kicked out, was living on the street, begging for and going couch to couch and stuff like that. So they're looking at what's going on their timeline, right? And the algorithm is showing them this 19-year-old that's a millionaire and all she did was XYZ, right? But that's not reality for the masses, right? So social media, it makes it look like that for them. They're like, why am I going to go stand for 8 hours and go do this when I could go do, right? And it's like, no, but again, you don't have nobody looking over your shoulder, right? The only person probably coming for you is the IRS if you don't pay your taxes on time. But the freedom of that how liberated you feel when you don't own anyone. And now me and my friends are not getting into beef because they gypped me. And, so it's just, how do we help them shift the narrative? And I know, Vincent, this is your whole take on, right? Using your lived experience to shift that narrative to young people that show you're really talented, you're really talented. You apply your interests and your skills in spaces that you're actually good at, right? But the instant gratification that social media can give you, right, is what's satisfying for now, right? But parents, you got to pour into one another, even adults, because some adults are stuck in this space too, right? Pour into your friend or pour into yourself so that your self-esteem is not tied to how much likes that you get, how much shares, how much views that you get on social media. And then you will be less likely to go out there and risk it all. Now they're saying crash out. You're least likely to go crash out now because your validation is not tied to that, right? So it really goes back to the self-esteem. It goes back to basics, right? Put the phones away. Sit down and have a conversation with your child, with your homegirl, with your bro, and be like, yo, what you're doing, you're really tripping. You're really looking crazy. You're really a clown for doing that or whatever. But I also believe you can't shame people into change, but we got to bring back a little bit of shame. We got to bring back a higher sense of pride too. And I always say that proud people get up every day and make better decisions for themselves, because there's just certain things that I will never do and won't do because I'm proud of who I am, right? But again, it takes time to get there. How do we help our community get there?
So, okay, I see Gorham, but I'm gonna grab Vincent first. Vincent, you have on a shirt that says it's only money.
It's only money. It's my boy BI clothing line. Yeah. But I was just touching on what Taj was saying, right? Because I had a conversation with some young men the other day, and I had to let them understand. Like I said, I'll be giving it to them the realest I could give it to them, so they can understand and see, because they had it confused. It's like, if somebody's coming outside overnight or whatever they doing, coming outside, all this jewelry on, all this flashing money, and somebody come for you, they not hating. They can understand it's hunger. It's like, once you put yourself out there, you want to live like you in the streets, like you're from the streets, just because you got jewelry on and some nice clothes and you're not really from the streets, they're gonna come for you. And it's not hate. That's not hate. It's hunger. You flashing all this, and it's young people out here that's really hungry, and it's not even young people. Some older men is hungry. So you putting yourself out there when you're doing things like that. So we had a real deep discussion like this the other day with a group of young men. So I give it to them so they can understand, yeah, the scamming thing, it might look nice, but you got to really be built for everything that you bring. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, it's just that giving it to them real, and it opened their eyes, because it was like, nah, dudes ain't hating on them. Dudes is hungry. So you putting yourself out there for the wolves to come get you. You know what I'm saying? When you're doing that.
That's very real, right? If you flash the money, somebody's gonna want it. If you're flashing the jewelry, somebody's gonna want it. If you're running around here in these $500 sneakers, somebody's gonna want those sneakers. And the only thing that's changed in the last 40 years is the brands, right? or what we call it. Because when I was in high school, people were getting killed over sheepskins. People were getting killed over bombers. People were getting killed over the Cazal glasses. That was 40 years ago, 35 years ago. And now people are getting killed over different clothing, different names, same stuff, right? And we have to be careful. And Again, the same conversation. I'm gonna get you, Gorham, but after we finish with Gorham, I wanna just shift a little bit, because some of this is parents' fault also, right? You got to pay attention. If you know your kid doesn't have a job and they're coming in the house with all types of money and all types of gear, girls or guys, you have to have that conversation. And when you're not having that conversation, the failure to have the conversation is basically, side-eye permission to do it. If they're sitting there and giving you money to get your hair and nails done, or they're giving you money for rent, again, we could ignore it, but we don't want to turn around in 6 months or a year and we're wearing T-shirts with their name on it. And then saying, I didn't know. Well, you didn't want to know. And not wanting to know and wanting to ignore it is not going to stop something from happening. And then this is not placing blame. It's just saying, if like everyone's been saying, we have to keep it real. We have to keep it 100. We have to keep it a buck, right? Ignoring it and acting as like it's not happening does not mean it's not happening. It just means that we've turned our heads the other way, and that's not going to work. And we can't be our kids' friends. And it is your house, your apartment, it is your business. They don't have privacy. Their phone, they don't have privacy. Their room, they don't have privacy. Who they hanging out with, they don't have privacy. And we can find 20 million different excuses. But I promise you, my mother knew everything that I was doing after school and on 4th Avenue and with my friends. And we didn't even have cell phones back then. Her friends would call from a payphone to her phone. And by the time I got home, my mother was asking me a question that she already knew the answer to, right? And we might say that's old school and that's not reality anymore. And, parents are afraid of their kids, but you can't be afraid of your kids. You got to be afraid of what's going to happen to your babies if somebody else gets hold to them, right? This is not about DSS and CPS or anything like that. It's about parenting, and it's not easy. But oftentimes we have a lot of pride and we don't want to share with anyone that was struggling with getting our kids to talk to us and getting our kids to listen to us. But then it comes out later on when we find them in situations that we can't control. So Gorham, I want you to jump on in because you were ready to get at it a minute ago. But I'm getting old, so I had to remember that thought.
I just want to say, these kids, they see all the like you said, Todd, all they see is the money and stuff like that. And that's the problem. It's not enough of these conversations from these older people telling them like, yo, yeah, I may be doing this, but I had to go through this. I'm watching over my back. Oh, this happened to me and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we holding these kids, we giving them too much. What's the word I'm looking for? We expecting too much of them. And you got to think back when you was a kid, how you expect them to get something that it took you 30-some years to get yourself. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to pick up the ball and show these kids like, yo, this is what we had to go through for this. This is the heartache I caused my mother and stuff like this. The grass ain't always greener. Yeah, you might get this money and stuff like this, but when you get locked up, you ain't even got enough for a lawyer. Or your mom's is struggling. Now she got to worry about how to feed you and stuff like that. These ain't the conversations we have with these kids. We just turning a blind eye to them. And like you said, Madam Mayor, back in the day, if I did something, my mother wouldn't know about it by the time I got home. Now when these kids do something, everybody just go like this. Oh, look what Nancy's son doing. Look at this. It's wrong. It's like we're dropping the ball with these kids. We can't expect them to get something that it took us. I ain't gonna say my age, but but it took me 30-some years to get to this mentality. If I would have known this back then, I wouldn't be where I was. I wouldn't have went through the trials and tribulations that I had to go through and stuff like that. So like Mr. Jackson said, and I'm gonna keep doing it, my number one go-to is to be real with these kids. All right.
Thank you, Henry. I'm gonna let you go for a minute because I know you're always talking about parenting, the family structure, community support. It takes a village to raise a child, like all of this. So I'm gonna let you loose.
I'm gonna share two quotes, right? Socrates said that an unexamined life is not worth living. You got to pay attention, right? And there's another quote that I love. I mean, I love, and you'll find it. It's an old Greek quote or inscription that is in the temple of Apollo, and it says, "Know thyself, and to thine own self be true." And what that means is that you basically have to encourage people to be true to themselves and understand their own nature, right? A lot of people are acting out of or mimicking something, right? You're spending so much time trying to be this character, and it leaves no time for you to be yourself. We got to let them know that it's okay for them to just be themselves. If you busy being all these other people, who's being you? Somebody has to be you. Otherwise, you are that. You're the unexamined life. It's not worth living. Pay attention to yourself. Learn more about yourself, and you'll be able to do more with yourself. And like I said, it's all about the example that we set as the influencers around them, as the influencers who have their attention, as the influencers who have their ear, as the influencers who have their mind, so to speak. There's somebody that everybody looks to, even the one that says, I don't look up to nobody, I don't listen to nobody. It's a facade. There is somebody on this earth, there's somebody on this planet, there's somebody in your community that can come to you and pull your coattail. I don't care who you are. When I was in the streets, I controlled every street that I was on, but there was always somebody that I was willing to go sit down and listen to and have a conversation with and look for guidance and accept what they was telling me. Why? Because they had some sort of influence on me. I'm arrested there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, and the one thing that we have to do as a community is we have to stop hating ourselves so much. Everyone acts like, oh, only in Mount Vernon. No, New Rochelle, White Plains. You know, my guy, Randall Woodfin, is the mayor of Birmingham. And I love Mayor Woodfin because he talks about it real straight. And he's always talking about the ghost guns and, you know, people having regular guns and, you know, printing out the things that turns them into automatic guns, the little clicks. And how people are catching cases. Brandon Scott down in Baltimore, you know, looking at those homicide rates, and they're going down. But these same challenges that we have in Mount Vernon, you're seeing in communities large and small around the country. And there is no single answer, right? But a lot of it starts respectfully in the home. Respectfully in the home. You know, government does not raise your children. And even when you do raise your children, you could raise your child and give them everything. Sometimes we give them too much, right? But you can give them everything and put all the type of influences that you need to put around them. But sometimes they will choose influence in the street or in school or on social media more than they'll hear their parents, because that's part of growing up. The difference is when we did it when we were younger, like I said, I'm 56. When we did it, it wasn't fatal. When we did it, it didn't catch as long a time. For some people it did, right? There was the Rockefeller drug laws, and I know plenty of people who did 25 and went in for a long time because they were trying to make fast money. And I also, unfortunately, know, you know, a lot of people who lost their lives. But each generation sees the same challenge, even if it's a little bit of a different issue, if it shows up a little differently. Like we said, it's not the corner boys anymore. It's scamming, it's washing checks, it's credit card fraud, it's, you know, online identity theft and things of that nature. But again, still oftentimes ending up in the same result. And that's having a problem on the street or having a problem with the law enforcement. I could tell you that there's nothing wrong with being corny. right? A corny, uncomplicated life where you don't have to look over your back is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I can tell you the number of people who I've spoken to who've gone and done the 10 and the 15 and the 25 years. They said, man, if I knew now what I knew back then, the McDonald's after school job would not have been a problem, right? Because really, when you out here doing this other stuff, when you look at the money over time, you're still putting in the same amount of time. If you make slow money consistently, it's still money. Fast money, when you make money fast, you lose money fast. And you lose your freedom and you can lose your safety at the same time. And so we have like 4 minutes left before we are coming to the close of our hour. If everyone, I want to thank you all for coming on. This is just the beginning of the conversation, and this conversation is not about any one person, any one situation, any one community, any one circumstance. It's something that we've just been seeing more and more of, and we have to start talking about it publicly, not because we're judging people, but because we love people. And we want to see our community healed, and we want to end the drama and the trauma, and we want to see there be more resilience and more opportunity for people to choose right. When we created the youth court, a lot of the young people sat there and said, wow, I didn't realize it had to take this for me to choose a lot of the services that already existed in the community, right? And so as we close, I just want your closing thoughts, and we're going to go backwards. We're going to start with Gorham.
I just want to touch on what you said. One of my biggest problems, like I didn't believe myself. Me changing and stuff like that. Other people didn't think it was true. Oh, he ain't gonna change. Gonna be right back, and that caused me not to believe in myself. And it wasn't until I was sitting in a room with Mr. Terry, and I'm like, yo, damn, I don't even feel like I belong in this room. Who would ever thought? And he looked at me and said, how you think that? You here, ain't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, then you belong here. And then from that moment, I realized how anybody gonna believe in me if I ain't believe in myself. And then that's what made me start walking in it. So you gotta love yourself, as you said, Mayor.
Thank you, Gorham. Vincent, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, yes, I feel the same way. Just like Gorham said it, like it just be amazing. Like even just being part of this conversation with y'all, it's just me changing my narrative and leaving that street life alone and trying to just do better for the young people, for the community. And I'm just going hard every day, and I appreciate these conversations. I want to have a lot more, just not the conversations, the action. Let's put our best foot forward, get together, and try to make some type of change. Like because I'm heavy on it, So I appreciate y'all for having me, and I'm here. Blessings.
Vincent, I'm gonna say this. I want to see you put this on a shirt: from parole to proclamations, because that's the daggone flex. That's the flex. That's the flex, right? You got proclamations, right? The rest of that's in your rearview mirror. You getting proclamations. So congratulations. Thank you for your work, Taj.
I think this conversation was amazing, and it's the start of many to come. And as Vincent said, actions behind it. Coach mentioned that he uses the goals of his players to help them determine how they what their presence is on social media, right? And that's because they aspire to be greater, right? We need to assure that our young people, our friends, and other residents in the community have aspirations and have ambitions to be great, because then they'll act accordingly. But yeah, Madam Mayor, thanks for having this conversation.
Thank you. We're coming back. We're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Danny, if you were never an imposter in the street, then don't feel like one when the rooms God walks you into switch and change. Absolutely. Condell, Coach Smiley.
So, just really quick, we spend a lot of time, especially in the workplace, talking about being leaders and making tough decisions. And, I just want to share with every parent and every adult in the community that you are a leader. And so there's times that you're going to have to make tough decisions in order to keep these children safe and in order to put them on the right path. So as a parent, as an adult in the community, you can't shy away from those decisions because it might be uncomfortable or unpopular, but we have to do what's in the best interest of these kids and to make sure that it's our job to leave it better than we found it for them. And if we all take that mindset, we'll help these kids to be great. And, thank you again for this conversation. Thank you for inviting me in. It's a passionate subject. It's an uncomfortable subject for some people, but it's needed.
Minister Terry, if you could close us out.
I'm going to close out by saying this. Change does not happen. Change is made. And it starts with you.
Thank you so much, everybody. And the church said amen. I'm glad that we are back, and this was a good way to kick off Let's Talk, right? And we will be having you back. Everyone, please make sure that you come out on Friday for the Mental Health Symposium at the Dole Center, Friday at 5:30 p.m. It's called Healing Together. That's something that we have to do together, is heal together. We're going to have some real critical and honest conversations. And it can be life-changing if you avail yourself to it. There's no shame in coming out. Nobody's there to judge you. And this is going to be some real honest discussion. So come on out. And then also one of the announcements that we started out with is tomorrow we will start giving out the applications for youth employment for winter and spring. We have 70 slots available, $16.50 an hour. Is what our young people will make if they're the ages of 14 to 24 years old. So please come on out to the Youth Bureau and pick up your applications so that you will have 2 weeks to complete your applications, and the applications have to start coming back on January 27th. So tomorrow's the 13th. Pick up your applications and you'll start returning them the week of January 27th. We want to give our young people an opportunity for employment and give them an alternative to having too much time on their hands, and surround them with people who will help them grow naturally, academically, financially, and spiritually and holistically. So thank you, everyone. We will be back. Continue to look out for our announcements of Let's Talk. And in the coming weeks, we will be bringing different commissioners and community leaders on to give you updates. Please let us know if there are topics that you want us to discuss and talk about, and we will do that as well. Take care, everyone. Be blessed, and let's heal together and move forward together. Take care.